Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again to the witnesses, congratulate you for your nomination. Governor Brownback, you are supported by a number of people I really care about and respect, and you are suited for this position in many ways. I do have a couple of concerns, and so let me just jump right to them. In 2015, you issued an executive order retracting an 8-year executive order in Kansas that provided protection in the state workforce against adverse employment action on the ground of sexual orientation. Describe why you did that.
That was an order that created a right by the executive branch that wasn't available to other people, and it wasn't passed by the legislative branch. I believe those sorts of issues should be passed by a legislative branch.
Do you commonly issue executive orders?
What's that?
Do you commonly issue as governor executive orders?
Some, but not
and isn't that kind of the point of an executive order? You issue an executive order on something that the legislature hasn't passed. If it was clearly in statute, you wouldn't need to issue an executive order.
Yeah, but if this is a foundational issue that you were creating a right for state employees that wasn't available to the rest of the people in the state. And also,
was it bad to give state employees that right?
I believe these sort of things ought to be passed by the body. I'm one that feels like you ought to create and have the law pass itself.
Can I ask you this?
That answers why we did that, why I did that.
Is the governor of Kansas, as the governor, do you appoint cabinet secretaries?
I do.
Do you appoint agency heads?
Most, not all, but I do.
And do you take those appointments seriously, interview people to make sure they're competent, honest, that they can do the job well?
To the best of my ability.
Do you feel like you have high standards in the people that you appoint?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be appropriate in terms of setting a standard for your workforce, for your cabinet secretaries and agency heads, for you to say to them, I don't think you should discriminate against people on the grounds of their sexual orientation? If you're hiring for honesty, if you're hiring for competence, wouldn't that be an appropriate thing that the governor, as the chief of a state personnel operation, would want to know about leaders in state government?
I think it would be a rational thing. I just don't think it's a right that the executive branch should create without the legislative branch.
When I was governor, the first day I did an executive order that protected people in a variety of ways, including on the grounds of sexual orientation. First order I signed about 10 minutes after I was inaugurated in Williamsburg. And I had an attorney general who made the same point to me. He said, well, the legislature didn't do this. And I said, but I'm hiring agency heads and cabinet secretaries who are administering state government. And I think as the chief executive, one of the things I want to know about them is that they will not discriminate against employees. Can't you see that the retraction of an executive order like this that had been in place for 8 years sends a message that that is not a value, non-discrimination against folks on the grounds of sexual orientation? That's not a value that you share?
I don't think it sends that message, and furthermore, as being the ambassador on religious freedom, I look forward to working with people, working with you, working with everybody, regardless of their ideas or views on how we can advance the agenda of religious freedom. There may be differences on other topics. There are differences that Ambassador Saperstein and I have on other topics.
Let me connect it to religious freedom.
The beauty of this topic has been that we tend to focus on what bipartisan things are that we agree upon. And I pledge to you to do that in this role as Ambassador for Religious Freedom.
Let me connect
continue the work that Ambassador Saperstein
Let me
has done
connect
in
this to religious freedom. Are you aware that there are countries around the world where you can be imprisoned and even executed if you are LGBT?
I believe that's correct.
And are you also aware that in some of those countries, the asserted justification for criminal treatment of people based on LGBT status is a religious justification? That's what's cited as the justification for the criminal punishment of people who are LGBT.
Yeah. I had a lengthy conversation yesterday with Randy Berry, who worked with Ambassador Saperstein in the prior administration, who has Kansas roots, as you do some as well. And we had a good conversation about how these two offices work together, and I don't see doing anything any different than what they work together on for as far as the topics.
That wasn't really my question.
But that really is the point.
Is there any circumstance under which religious freedom can justify criminalizing, imprisoning or executing people based on their LGBT status?
Well, I agree with what Randy Berry did around the world on that topic. I'm not fully briefed on the various and the specifics, but what he basically did and described to me yesterday and the work they did back and forth with Ambassador Saperstein, I wouldn't see changing.
Okay, but I'm going to close just with this question. I'd like an answer to this question. Is there any circumstance under which criminalizing, imprisoning, or executing somebody based on their LGBT status could be deemed acceptable because somebody asserts that they are religiously motivated in doing so?
I don't know what that would be, in what circumstance, but I would continue the policies that have been done in the prior administration in working on these international issues.
I really would expect an unequivocal answer on that, but my time is up.